So Norman, off to you.
Thank you very much. Greetings, everybody. I'm honored to be here. Last year, I went to the InfoSeCon presentation in person, and that was the first time I'd been to it. I really enjoyed the show, and it's unfortunate that we have to all do this remotely, but it's a great show, and hopefully next year we'll be able to see each other in person. So I'm Norman Field. I'm going to talk about passwordless authentication, in particular the FIDO protocol. and I'm going to cover some of the technicalities of the protocol, but the fun part is that I'm going to show you guys how to sign up for using this passwordless protocol on well-known websites. So hold on a second here. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to talk about, I'm going to tell you about StrongKey, the company I work for. I mean, you guys know why passwords are no good. I probably don't have to go too much into that. Talk about the FIDO Alliance, how the FIDO 2 protocol works, and then I'll show some examples with Google, Twitter, and login.gov to show that this is real, it's happening now, and it's being supported. So a little bit about me. I've been around for a while. I still haven't been able to get rid of my cowlick in these photos, but there you go. And I've worked for IBM and some other companies. StrongKey is a member of the FIDO Alliance, and I'm contributing member there. And I'm going to continue on here. So StrongKey. StrongKey has been around for about 20 years, and the origins are in PKI, but we've branched out into other cryptographic services, including data encryption, file encryption, and of course, passwordless authentication with the FIDO protocol. But we've have well-known customers on 6 continents, and we use our expertise to solve cryptographic problems in the industry. So I'm going to continue on here. Why passwords are obsolete? Well, I don't think I need to tell you guys. I mean, passwords, we're seeing it in the news almost on a daily basis, where passwords have been the entry point for breaches in systems. And studies have shown, I think this is 81% of hacking-related breaches succeed through stolen or weak passwords. This is from a Verizon study a few years back. And here's some notable examples. I mean, these are big companies, major breaches, and they've been fined. You might notice these fines seem kind of big, but for such companies, I mean, it's not. It doesn't seem to be enough to get consensus around the industry to actually solve this problem. And part of it is that to solve the problem, it's hard. But now the FIDO Alliance has come along and is offering a technology that can solve this password problem in a way that's both more secure and easier to deploy and consumable. So the FIDO Alliance is a nonprofit standards group, and FIDO stands for Fast Identity Online. And the whole purpose for the formation of this alliance was to find a solution to the password problem. So create a solution that's more secure than passwords themselves, simpler for the end user, and easy for service providers to deploy. The FIDO Alliance is composed of 200 plus members worldwide, government institutions, big tech giants, financial institutions, Apple, Google, they're all part of this here. And StrongKey has been a member of this alliance since 2014. We created the first and perhaps only open source FIDO certified server. FIDO certified means that the FIDO Alliance, as part of their interoperability testing, has certified that the server works. So this is an official term that means that the FIDO Alliance has blessed the solution. And there are many other FIDO certified servers and authenticators out there. FIDO compliant is not a real term. So if you see some company saying we have a FIDO compliant server, that's not FIDO certified. That's different. That's more of marketing terminology. The StrongKey FIDO implementation was originally used for the interop certification testing. So back in a number of years ago, we had our implementation as the interoperability server. So it's open source. It can be downloaded from GitHub, and on that GitHub page, we also have a Node.js tutorial that uses our API, so you can download it and play around with it. So the FIDO2 protocol, hold on a second, let me lower this. It's a passwordless authentication protocol. Our history is in PKI. This technology is based on public key cryptography. So it's right in our wheelhouse. This is why we got involved in it, and also why well, it's why we got involved in it. But the other reason is because it's just a great solution to the password problem, and StrongKey is all about solving the hard problems in cryptography and in the business world. So the protocol itself combines two standards: the CTAP protocol, which is a transport protocol that allows the browser to talk to an authenticator, which is like a, could be a USB key that plugs into your computer. The WebAuthn protocol is the web side of it that is a JavaScript API managed by the World Wide Web Consortium that allows the browser to talk to the FIDO server. And the good news is that the browsers have all adopted this already. So this is the challenge for new protocols, is to get adoption, and we now have adoption. The momentum is there now for FIDO. So the FIDO2 registration. So there's registration and authentication. I'm going to cover both of those, and then we'll go into the examples. How am I doing on time? 15 minutes, okay. So these are the components that make up a FIDO2 protocol flow. On the left-hand side, you have the human user, and the human is part of the protocol, because the FIDO2 protocol is unique, or not unique, but it's special in the sense that it does require tests for human presence. And that is done through some sort of gesture. The gesture may be touching your finger to the Touch ID on your Mac laptop. It may be the facial recognition on your Windows Hello. It may be plugging a USB key into your device and touching it, or it could be a mobile phone. It could be the fingerprint reader on your mobile phone. It could be the video camera on your mobile phone. There are many different ways, but the authenticator is a piece of hardware that you interact with that verifies that you are present as a human. So that's a really important aspect of this. It's the anti-phishing aspect of it. You need a FIDO2 aware platform, and that is simply your browser for the most part, but it doesn't have to be a browser. The next part is the FIDO2 enabled web application. So any web application where you're currently typing in your username password, that username password can be replaced by a FIDO authentication, or FIDO could be used as a second factor. And then, of course, on the far right, you have the FIDO2 server, which is going to manage the registrations, all the accounts, the user accounts who have signed up for your website are going to be kept in a place, because as you'll see during the registration process, we collect the public keys. I'm going to walk through this registration process. So you go to, in fact, we're going to see examples of this with Google and login.gov later. But when a user signs up for a FIDO account, the user is going to present a username or display name. And this is a user browsing on a web browser here. The next step is the browser calls the web server, and this is the the web authn registration API. The web server is going to check, well, is this guy registered yet? No. Okay, let's do a registration with the FIDO2 server. There's this what we call a pre-register call. And this is the important part. The server is going to generate a nonce, a number that's going to be used one time for this registration. It's just a random number generated, and it's going to be sent back as a challenge to the user. So the browser gets this, and the browser now is using the CTAP protocol that I mentioned earlier. And this is where the magic happens. The authenticator, this device that's going to test for human presence, is going to ask the user to do something. You're going to touch it, or it's going to be a facial recognition or something to verify that you're present. And at that point, a public-private key pair is generated. And the public key, and this generated on the device, the private key is going to be kept on this authenticator. The public key is going to be sent back to the server, and that's your registration. There's some metadata there too, but I'm not going to go into the details there. So the public key is sent back. The server gets the public key. There's the public key that was generated for the user, and that key is also specific to this website. So every single website you go to with this key, with this authenticator, is going to generate a new key pair specific for that website. So the other thing that's sent along here is a certificate from the manufacturer, and we can do some, and that's to attest that this is coming from a trusted device. So we register this. The registration is basically the public key we put in our database, and that's the registration, and it's associated with the username and this particular authenticator. So then we send the response, yes, you are registered. So that was the registration process. Do we have any questions on this?
I do not have any Q&A questions at this time.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and, anybody have any questions? I know there's 54 participants, so. And also go ahead and you can utilize the chat function as well to talk amongst yourselves, or if you have any questions there, or not questions, but Mike Bullard raised hand.
Okay.
Mike, I'm not sure how to get to you. Oh, we do have one from Thomas Morrison. How does this get us to passwordless authentication?
Okay, good question. And so that was the registration process. You'll notice that during registration, there was no password being given. What we gave the website was just a username, and we had the authenticator. I'm going to now show in the next slides.
Hold on a second. There's one more question. Is this only applicable to browser connections? What about SFTP?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's just to finish the last question, I'm going to show you guys authentication next. This isn't the end of the presentation. This is just a pause for the registration. The next step is going to be authentication. I'll show you how the authentication works without passwords. And then we'll also show you some real examples with Google and Twitter and stuff. But and then to answer the question on SFTP. So this is a good question because the FIDO2 protocol was designed to address the scenario where it's a web browser. I mean, that's the biggest use case in the industry for now. But FIDO is working on other stuff, and there is an implementation for SSH, and you can you're just going to have to do some Googling. It's not part of this presentation, but there have been some efforts to apply this FIDO authenticator, passwordless authentication to other non-web-based scenarios. So that's a really good question. All right, so I'm going to cover authentication now. So same picture, and this authentication is very similar to registration. You see, now we go to the website where we're going to log in. We see our login screen, which has one field, not two, not a username, password. It's just got the username. So we type in our username. The browser talks to there's the JavaScript in the browser. It's going to talk to the web application. The web application is going to check, is this guy registered? Yes, he is. So let's go and make a WebAuthn call to the FIDO2 server with the username. So now the servers, and this is authentication, so the server is going to challenge. We're going to send a nonce back. The challenge is sent to the browser. The browser communicates with the authenticator. Now, let's say this is a Mac laptop with a Touch ID. So the authenticator is actually your laptop itself. The authenticator is going to say, okay, I've got a challenge here. I need to see if this user is present. The browser itself will pop up this window, and we'll see an example of this later that says, touch your authenticator to verify that you're here. And the user touches, and at that point, rather than during registration, we generated a key pair, but now what the authenticator does is it takes that nonce and it digitally signs it using the private key. So now this digital signature goes back to the server. The server gets it. The server looks up the username in the database, retrieves the public key, and validates the signature. That's the authentication, validating the signature. Okay, we're done. We authenticated the user. Now we just say, yes, this worked out great. The user is authenticated. So that's it. That's passwordless authentication. It's just digital. It's really just digital signatures, but it's done in such a way that it's user-friendly and is pretty straightforward to implement. So any questions on that part?
Okay, I do have a question. It says, where does the StrongAuth server live, and is it only authing HTTPS and HTTP sessions?
So going back, this StrongKey server here on the right, I think you're asking about. The FIDO2 server is separate from the web application. So it can live in an on-premise data center, or it can live in a private cloud. It just depends on how you want to do it. But it is a separate server. We have REST-based APIs that your web application as a service which is using FIDO as an authentication mechanism. You implement your web application as you normally would, and then when you want to do authentication, you just make some REST API calls.
Okay, are there any other questions? I currently do not show any currently. Oh, one just showed up.
All right.
How does a web app become FIDO2 enabled?
Okay, so that is it's pretty straightforward, but it's not part of this presentation. But I will tell you that we have a Node.js example on our GitHub website. So if you go to GitHub and search for StrongKey, you'll see our repositories there. Look for FIDO2. Under that, look for a tutorial, and you'll see. But what we have is essentially REST APIs that you integrate into your authentication. So if you have a website that's got username, password, wherever, like when you do your username, password authentication in a website, you're probably calling out to an LDAP server or something like that. Rather than doing that, you're just going to call out to the REST APIs to our FIDO server. So that's the kind of, it's very similar it's a very similar way of integrating any type of authentication mechanism into your website. It's just a different API.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Steve Ochmansky. Sorry if I mispronounced that name. With a FIDO authenticator on a device, say a mobile phone, can you differentiate a work username and a personal username on one device?
That is, I believe so, yeah. Yeah. That should not be a problem. If you go to the same website, and let's say you've registered with your work username, and now you want to have a personal account on the same website, you should be able to use a different username. And as part of that registration process, it would generate a different public-private key pair. So, yes.
Okay, and then the last question for this section is via an anonymous attendee, and he or she asks, can you post the GitHub link for the example, or is it within your presentation somewhere?
It should be within the presentation at the end. We have a bunch of resource links at the end. I believe the GitHub link is there, but like I say, if it's not there, I can try to post it on the chat.
Okay, and then I do see Pashara Black just posted a link.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you, Pashara.
Yes, thank you very much.
Alrighty, and we'll continue on with the presentation now.
Okay, great. Okay, now for the fun part. So as part of this presentation, I went out to a bunch of websites trying to find which websites supported FIDO today. Now, I'm part of the FIDO Alliance. There are a bunch of companies there. So I kind of went through the logos there looking at their websites. And this is how I went about trying to find out companies that support FIDO today. So I went searching the web. I searched for, does company X support FIDO? And you can see on the right is a screenshot where I searched for Twitter supports FIDO. And I got some links, and I was able to find out that Twitter does support FIDO. Once you find that a company supports FIDO, then you kind of have to do some digging. These companies aren't really promoting it as much as I would like to see. So you kind of have to go, you log into your account using username, password, and then you can dig around in the in your settings and start looking for things like 2FA or 2-factor or 2-step. They don't call it FIDO. I mean, many of them do not call it FIDO. They call it, security key or 2-step or multi-factor. And sometimes it's very difficult to know if it's actually the FIDO protocol or some other FIDO protocol. If you have to enter a random passcode that gets texted to you, that's not going to be FIDO. That's going to be some other, multi-factor way of authenticating. And then there are some use cases where it's not a one-time code, but it looks like FIDO, but it's just, for example, using the biometrics on your phone. Now you can use the biometrics on your phone, and it's not FIDO. What it's doing is it's just kind of using the biometrics to identify you, and then it's like retrieving the password from where it saved it on your mobile device, and then it's presenting the password to the website. So here's an example where I had an account, and I used my fingerprint to log in typically, but I went on to so this is a mobile app, but then I went on to my website for this account, and I changed my password and I tried to log in again. If it were FIDO, it wouldn't care about what your password is. But what happened here is that you can see on the right-hand side of the screenshot, it says the passcode from Norm was changed since the last sign-in. Touch ID is temporarily off. This means it's not FIDO. This means it's just retrieving your password from storage and presenting it to the website. So it's kind of tough sometimes to see if it's FIDO or not, but this is one way to find out if it's not. I see that there's some questions coming through. We are going to get to those real soon here. These are just some examples. I'm sure there are plenty of other companies who have implemented FIDO. These are just the ones that I found while doing some Googling. There is U2F is kind of a predecessor to the FIDO2 protocol, and there are definitely more examples than what I've shown here, but these are a couple of websites that have U2F implemented. Facebook, Twitter, Google, Apple, Login.gov, eBay, these guys all have implemented the FIDO2 protocol. We could, so there were a couple of questions. Should we go ahead and answer those now?
Okay. A couple of the questions were actually just providing the URLs, and
Okay.
that person can go ahead and send that into the regular chat versus the Q&A section. That would be great.
Okay.
I do have an anonymous attendee that did ask, what's the difference between FIDO and FIDO2?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's unfortunate the marketing of the FIDO Alliance could have done a better job at naming this protocol, because FIDO2 is the name of the protocol. FIDO is the alliance, and the FIDO Alliance talks about FIDO protocols. And when they talk about FIDO protocols, they talk about all the protocols that the FIDO Alliance has created. There's U2F, UAF is a legacy one, U2F is also legacy, and FIDO2 is the latest protocol. So they named the latest protocol FIDO2. And that is the protocol that is made up of two other protocols, WebAuthn and CTAP. So really the difference between FIDO and FIDO2 is, think of FIDO as the FIDO Alliance, FIDO2 as the passwordless authentication protocol. Okay.
The next question again is from Steve. Does your FIDO registrations private key get shared amongst multiple devices for the same user, say PC browser, and also to that same user's mobile or tablet? Is there a cloud service to share the vault, so to speak, between devices?
Absolutely not. This is very important. Very good question. The private key is separate for every authenticator. This is why FIDO is such a secure protocol, because it protects the private key in hardware. The private key is everything. I mean, this is the equivalent of your password. And you do not want to share your private key amongst devices. You do not want to share your private key amongst websites. You don't want to put it in the cloud. It's going to be protected by hardware. And the hardware is going to be on a laptop. It may be a trusted platform module chip on your motherboard. On an authenticator, that's that authenticator, the one that plugs into your computer. It's gonna protect that via hardware. On a mobile phone, there are secure elements on mobile phones where private keys would be stored and protected. So this is a very good question, and the answer is the public keys are going to be put out on as part of the registration process. They get stored can be stored in the cloud. But the private keys are separate for every website / authenticator combination. So if you've got, and I'll show you here with Google, I'm going to register 2 devices for Google, and each one is going to have a separate, it'll have a separate public-private key pair, even though it's the same account on the Google server side. But on my authenticator side, I'm going to have 2 different keys.
Okay, and then the last question, which you may have just answered, but I'm not quite sure, is are the PKI elements susceptible to a phone cloning compromise since it's hardware?
Phone cloning compromise.
Right.
I don't think so, but I really am not familiar with the details of that particular attack. So I would think not, because the keys on a mobile device are going to be stored in the trusted platform, or rather the secure element chip on the phone. So I don't think you can clone that part of it. So I'm pretty sure you're protected, but if you want to research this, look at, do some Googling on cloning a secure element. This to me does not seem possible. It seems like the whole point of the secure element is that you wouldn't be able to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of examples just to show you guys that it's real and that it's hard to find sometimes. So here's Google. Here's my Google account. I log in with my username password. I go to the account settings and I click on the security tab. If you scroll down a bit, you'll see a section for signing into Google. And you'll see that there's password, there's use your phone to sign in, and there's 2-step verification. So I'm going to click on 2-step verification. Okay, I get a little wizard window that pops up. It says protect your account with 2-step verification. You notice there's no mention of FIDO here. It's called 2-step verification. I click getting started, and it's going to try to validate who I am with the password, because that's the only thing it knows right now. But it's Google's doing it. It's good that what they're doing here. It's recognizing that I'm about to make a change to my security aspect of my account and wants to verify that it's not someone else that just walked up to my computer. Okay, so then the next thing after I put my password in is this window pops up. There's show more options down here. I clicked on this show more options. It's a little pop-up and it says, do you want to use a security key or text message? So the text message part or voice call, that's not FIDO. The security key part is FIDO. So I select that and click continue. Okay, and then it says, get your security key ready. I click next. Now, it's hard to see because this is a static page, but right above this having trouble link there, it's got a little spinny thing going on here. And it's waiting for me to insert the key and touch it. And I believe in this case, I can't remember if I was registering a key or my Touch ID on my laptop, but the next thing that happens, I touched it, and then I get a little window that comes up here saying, my account.google wants to see the make and model of your security key. And I click allow. And then it has now recognized my security key, and it's allowing me to give it a name. So you can register with Google, you can register as many keys as you want. So what I did here is I named it USB-C/lightning key because it's a key that's got lightning on one side and USB-C on the other. And so I gave it that name, and it'll show up later here. So then I'm finished with the wizard. I'm now registered, and you can see that here we have, it says security key just added. Okay, so now we're registered. You can also, I'm going to go back for a second. You see up here, it says new, add your phone's built-in security key. So I went ahead and did that. I didn't take a bunch of screenshots, but I was also able to add my phone as a security key. So on the next screen here, you'll see that my phone's listed. Now I've got two security keys, two FIDO types of security keys. So if I lose one, I always have the other one as a backup. And of course, with Google, you also have your password, because here's the thing, Google is not yet allowing you to log in without a password. So even though the password's not adding anything from a security standpoint, I think, from a user experience standpoint, Google's afraid that it's going to be too different for an end user not to have a password. And people might get worried that their account's not secure if they don't have a password. But that's a perception right now that's probably going to change over time. Eventually, they will get rid of the password and you'll be able to just use your keys. Okay. So now here's authentication. So I go to my Google account. I still have to type in my password. They don't, like I was just saying. But this is what happens on any website. This is a browser user interface. So you see this window pops up here because the browser recognizes we're doing FIDO. It says use your security key with google.com. Insert your security key and touch it. So one of the things that companies may not like is that as a company, you don't control the branding of this particular interface. No matter what website you go to, if you're using the Chrome browser and you're doing FIDO authentication, this window will pop up and it'll look just like this. I mean, some of the wording may change depending on what kind of key you're using, but it's essentially a user experience that is controlled by the browser itself. Okay, so what happened is it asked me to touch my authenticator. I touched it, and then it, as far as Google goes, it allows a cookie to be set if you don't want to be prompted for a second factor again. And as long as that cookie's alive, it will skip the FIDO authentication, and you still have to use password to log in, but it won't ask you to do a second factor. So that was Google. Might as well pause for question. I don't know if any questions came in or not.
We do have one question from Thomas Morris.
Okay.
How do Bluetooth U2F/FIDO2 keys work? How do you register them?
So this is also a good question. There are FIDO2 authenticators, and typically it's a mobile phone, but it could be another device. But if you want to use your mobile phone as an authenticator, you can pair your mobile phone to your laptop, and it's kind of finicky still. I would recommend you use other methods for now, because I know the FIDO Alliance is working on some NFC improvements to the protocol, because it has been a bit finicky. But there are ways to, rather than having to plug in a device into your computer, you can be browsing on the web and use your mobile phone as an authenticator. You're better off using the platform, the laptop itself, as an authenticator than you are with your phone, because of the finicky nature. But there are some devices which use Bluetooth or NFC to communicate with the platform that you're browsing on and use it as an authenticator.
Okay, he also responded that these are separate fobs, like the Titan from Google, or, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that, Phaeton
Okay.
fobs.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with those particular fobs, but yeah, you should be able to, if those are designed for U2F, you should be able to go to the Google website, and since they are produced by Google, you say, then you should be able to go there and pair them with your computer and use them in the same way you would a fob that you plug in. You just have to make sure they're paired with the platform first. Okay, registration, and we'll have questions. I mean, I'm going to cover 2 more use cases. Let's see, what is our time here? Okay, 45. So Twitter, I'm not going through the sign-in process. The login process is going to be very similar to what we just saw with Google. But the reason I want to show registration is mainly because it's kind of hard to find out how to do this on these sites because they don't announce, we're doing FIDO here. So I just want to point to you how to get there. So if you're logged into your Twitter account, you'll see this ellipsis on the left-hand side. You click on that. Pop-up comes up, you'll see settings and privacy. Click on that. You'll see some menu on the left. You click on security and account access. And then you'll also see security on the right, and you click on that security link. And then this screen, you'll see this screen. And now you'll see that there is a 2-factor authentication option. So there are 3 options here. They have these check boxes next to them. So the security key is the one we want. That's the FIDO. But Twitter will not allow you to just use a security key. You actually have to first set up the text message. And I found that out by clicking security key. And no, I thought I showed the error. There was an error message that popped up saying you have to sign up for text messages. So I guess I didn't capture that screen or put it in this presentation. But anyway, you can see now I've gone through the process setting up text message. I did not show those screens because it's not FIDO related. It's just a one-time password thing that you have to set up. So you see that that checkbox is now checked. So now I click on I check the security key box. And the next screen I get is, a wizard to start this process. Use a physical security key to log into Twitter. Okay, I click start. My device, my key is plugged into the device, and here's that screen again with the browser. And it wants me to touch the key. I touch the key. The device creates a public-private key pair. It sends the public key over to Twitter. Twitter gets it, puts it in its database, and then it's done. That's registration. The checkbox is now checked. Now I can log into Twitter using FIDO as a second factor. Again, Twitter does, like Google, Twitter does not allow you to get rid of your password yet. Okay, so that's Twitter. And then login.gov, here we go. Another site, government's into it. I don't have, I have a few accounts with financial institutions, my bank, my credit card. I could not locate FIDO authentication for my bank accounts. And that was disappointing because it would have been really nice to have FIDO in a financial setting as an example here, and also just for me personally, it would be nice to have. So login.gov was an early adopter of FIDO, and this is really cool the way they did it. They have a really nice user experience here. You see in the upper right, sign in with login.gov. I click on that and I get this page. So I think I'm going to show you that the whole process of creating an account. So I didn't have an account with them. Down below, I clicked create an account. It asked me for my email address. It sent me an email to verify I am who I am. And then after I verified who I am, it asked me to create a password. Okay, now I have an account and I go to my settings and I see, oh, look, there are a bunch of different, other authentication methods, and one of them is security key. So I click on that. I give it a name. I click continue. And here's that screen with the browser. The browser says, oh, you're trying to do FIDO? Well, you need to touch your, this is the test for human presence. You need to touch your device. I touch it, and now I'm registered. So that's the registration process with login.gov. And that's from creating an account from scratch.
Norman, sorry for interrupting. It's
Sure.
the 10-minute warning.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And this is actually the last example I have. So then that's the registration. Authentication, straightforward, is kind of like what we did before. Log in with username, password as the first factor. Browser says touch your security key. I touch it. If you want to set a cookie to not do second factor in the future, you can do that here. You check the remember this browser, click continue, and you're logged in. Okay. So, so that was login.gov authentication and registration. And so to summarize what we've looked at, let me just say one more thing. And I said it before, but I'm going to say it again. Notice, I mean, the whole thrust of this presentation is passwordless authentication. You'll notice that we didn't, unfortunately, in the examples we show here, the passwords are still there, but that's a choice by the companies who are presenting this. Passwords are not providing any additional security. In fact, they're providing less security. They're making these websites are actually more vulnerable for using passwords because it's an entry point. If the password gets compromised. Now, if you've set up FIDO as a second factor, you know, it's making it much harder for someone to get into the website, even if your password's compromised. But if you don't, and you only have password as your first factor, you know, your account's vulnerable. So it would be nice for these companies to start offering the option to say, I want to use FIDO as my first factor, and I don't even need a second factor because FIDO is very strong to begin with. Okay, so we know that the continued use of passwords leads to identity theft and data breaches. This is happening on a daily basis. If you pay any attention to the news, in the IT news, you'll see that this is happening regularly. The good news is FIDO uses public key cryptography. This is a well-known technology that's been around forever, but it's now being implemented in a way that's easy for companies to deploy and a really nice user experience. We all have experienced, you know, logging into our phones by just touching the fingerprint reader. And that experience, you know, once you get used to it, you don't want to go back to typing in passwords, especially on a mobile device. So we can reduce our reliance on password authentication with this new technology. And it really is easy to integrate into web-based application. There's no excuse anymore not to get rid of passwords. It's a superior user experience. As like I say, we have all experienced passwordless authentication when we touch our phone and get logged in that way. Little cipher octopus down here is saying, look for FIDO authentication to start showing up in digital wallets and online payment systems. So yes, this digital wallets there's a payment services 2 directive in Europe is leading to the creation and use of digital wallets in a more scaled up way. And you're going to start seeing that FIDO authentication being used there. Okay, so here's how you can contact us. You know, StrongKey.com is our website. We're on social media. And resources, we have some links here to our open source FIDO2 certified server in GitHub. There's a proof of concept on our website. You can go to our website, go to the demos link. You can click on a FIDO2 demo and see what your experience is to log in without a password. So on our demo site, we don't make you sign up with a password. So, right, let's go to questions since we're running out of time here.
Okay, so we have 3 questions. The first, I'm going to do them a little out of order. I have the anonymous attendee asking, does the authenticator have different response type for presentation or type presentations? For example, rather than presenting an accept decline prompt, would it be possible to have the web page present a picture of a pineapple and then the authenticator presents 4 or 6, etc. pictures and the user has to click the pineapple to authenticate?
So that is not something the authenticator would do, but you could program your website to do something similar. It's just not, that's just not part of the FIDO protocol. But you could use that as like a second factor to a FIDO authentication. But that's kind of like a visual type of authentication. You could potentially integrate that type of authentication and use it as a test for human presence, but you would have to implement the CTAP2 protocol with like a platform like a laptop, and that could be, yes, actually, now that I think about it, that could be used as a test for human presence, and but you would have to write you would be essentially creating your own authenticator, and it would be kind of a web-based authenticator that would use the platform and the chip on your laptop as the place to store the private key.
Okay, so we are at the 3-minute mark now, so we have to do 2 questions in those 3 minutes. All right, so the anonymous attendee also asks, is there a lag period between revoking access and the user being kicked out of the service or losing access? Authentication token delay, basically.
No, there's no revocation like in PKI. What happens is if a website wants to disable a user, they just remove the account they just take the private key out of their server and it's done. No lag time at all. Next question. Okay,
and then, sorry, I might pronounce this person's name incorrectly. It's Kayla. It asks, would you please explain further about your bank not supporting FIDO?
Well, what I mean by that is that when I had my, these websites, they have to implement FIDO. They have to integrate FIDO into their website. And what I did is I logged into my bank account, I logged into my credit card account, I went to the account settings, and I tried to find, is there an option here for registering a FIDO authenticator? And I could not find the option for registering an authenticator. I wouldn't be surprised if they're working on it right now, but at least the banks that I have accounts with did not have those options.
Okay, so we have 2 minutes left, so I would like to have everyone do a virtual clap in the chat for our presenter Norman Field today, as well as being able to go to the his booth that is over in, hold on, the exhibit hall, I think it is where that's at. So there is one there. Liz F., I know that you're raising your hand. Hold on a second. If you can go ahead and if you have a question, put it in the Q&A, please. And everyone is there. And as always, if you want to connect with Norman, you can go ahead and go to the Lounge 1 as well to connect with him. And also, if you can go ahead and fill out the survey for today's presentation, that would be awesome. Okay. Norman, do you have any last words for us?
No, just thank you all for attending. This was fun, and if you really want to pursue FIDO, please you can just contact us at support@strongkey.com. And you can ask for me, and I monitor that email list, and we can talk offline if you need to talk about it.
And again, thank you guys. And this session is ending now. Thank you.
Thank you.